Take a look at one of those headline stories now. Afriforum's Private Prosecution Unit says that it will prosecute President Jacob Zuma's son, Duduzane, within 90 days of receiving the go-ahead from the National Prosecuting Authority. And this relates to an incident in 2014 when Zuma's Porsche crashed into a minibus taxi. Phumzile Dube died in the crash, and joining us in studio now to talk about this is Advocate Gerrie Nel. Thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much.
All right, so waiting for the green light from the NPA. Take us through that process. What does that mean?
We've, in fact, the Dube family launched an application for a National Prosecuting certificate. We assist them. We drafted the papers. So in their own names, they'll get a certificate because they have a right to privately prosecute. They will then allow us to prosecute on their behalf. The NPA will now have a reasonable time to consider the next step, which could be one of two things. They can either issue a National Prosecuting certificate, which would mean that we are, as you said, that we have to institute prosecution within 90 days. If we do, it's in the same courts, same law of evidence, same law of procedures. Everything is exactly the same. It's just not somebody that represents a state that prosecutes. The NPA could also reconsider their decision and decide to prosecute. If they do, then it's for the Dube family and for us, it would be a victory, because we don't necessarily want to prosecute ourselves. We just want to make sure that there's equality before the law and that there's not even a perception of selective prosecution. So that's really what it's about for us.
All right, so why pick up this case now? Because 2014 is when it happened. A whole process happened, an inquest happened, a judge made a pronouncement. What was defective of the process up until now?
I think you would have picked up that the Dube family was never informed. They were never consulted, they were never informed. And I then heard about this again when there was an expose of Gupta leaked emails. And we then made contact with the family. In terms of the specific case, it's a case that's ready. It's a case with a record of proceedings. People testified, people were cross-examined. So it's a case that's ready to go to court. And that's why we took the matter up, we consulted, and we're confident enough to apply for a National Prosecuting certificate. So it's just a specific facts in this matter in terms of available evidentiary material that made it ready to bring an application out.
A judge has made a decision in this case before, didn't they?
She did. May I just quote you? I wish I could remember it, but I can't. She said, Mr. Zuma failed to conduct himself in a reasonable manner under circumstances and under the adverse weather conditions, and she rejected his defense of aquaplaning, making a finding that his negligent act caused the death of the deceased.
So he was saying that because the road was slippery, because of the rain, the car veered into the back of the taxi, and the judge says that's not true.
Well, yes, I wouldn't really want to discuss the facts of the matter now, because we have to wait for the process to take effect and for the prosecution to start. But that's the magistrate's decision. The prosecutor that acted in the manner, I thought he did exceedingly well. He really cross-examined and led the witnesses well. He argued well, and that all played a role in us applying for a National Prosecuting certificate.
Whose responsibility is it to tell the family of what has happened? Because you said that they didn't know.
I would think that the NPA, having worked with the family, having used the family in court, having had the family in court, either the NPA or whoever acted for the family, but they did not know. I also mentioned today at the press briefing that they received no financial support whatsoever. They received 5,000 Rand from the Taxi Association, but that's all. There's a claim at the Road Accident Fund, but they haven't heard anything there as well.
So what do you say to people who say that this is a political maneuver by Afriforum, that you're actually after President Jacob Zuma?
If you know that we can only institute private prosecution once the NPA decided not to. So if we then successfully prosecute, what does it say? I mean, there are two things. You can only prosecute once they've decided not to prosecute, and secondly, only if you believe that there's merit in the matter. So I think as a proof of the eating will be in the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. If we successfully prosecute, certainly people cannot say that we had a political motive.
All right, so the next move is with the NPA, and then you'll respond after that.
Indeed.
Advocate Gerrie Nel, pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me.